Hello everyone and welcome to today's Energy Management and ISO 50001 webinar from LRQA. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Any questions that we do not have time to answer during the session will be responded to you after the webinar. For your information, we'll be running some live polls today. Please note that the responses are anonymous and the results will only be shared as a percentage result. It's my pleasure to introduce your first speaker for today. Heather Moore, PE, is LRQA's Technical Director for Sustainability, where she supports LRQA's sustainability products and advises clients on their sustainability journey. She joined LRQA in 2012 as a lead auditor and verifier, providing assessment and verification services for greenhouse gas emissions and other sustainability data, ISO 14001 and social auditing schemes. She has since held various roles with LRQA related to management, training auditors and verifiers, running second-party audit schemes for global companies, and leading complex verifications. Her 16+ years of experience in the environmental field have taken her to landfills, power plants, cruise ships, upstream and downstream oil and gas operations, chemical plants, agricultural operations, and various manufacturing facilities. And our second speaker today is James Thomas, Auditor Manager at LRQA. James manages a team of multidisciplinary management systems auditors in the Midlands region of the UK, ensuring that they deliver value to clients in line with international accreditation requirements and business assurance principles. Before this, James was a senior management systems auditor working with clients across a range of environmental, health and safety and quality standards. James has an MSc in environmental impact assessment. I'll now hand over to him, who will introduce the first two polls for today.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so everyone, our first poll question today is, excluding energy spend, what is your organization's biggest energy management challenge? So just select one, compliance with legislation, meeting corporate targets, data management, employee engagement on energy efficiency initiatives, or any other, and let us know what the other would be in the comments. And we'll just wait a bit for responses to come in, and then we'll see how everyone has responded. Excellent. So I see the responses are in now.
Okay, would you like me to comment on those, Heather?
Yes, go ahead, James.
Okay, so I can see that the majority of you that have joined the seminar identified employee engagement on energy efficiency initiatives as being one of the key reasons why you're interested in ISO 15001. Well, the good news is that the 50001 process and management system awareness and employee engagement is a key part of the standard, and the structure of the management system requires you to develop arrangements around that, so it should certainly help you achieving those aims. Next on the list is data management. 50001 is a data-driven standard. We'll go into that a little bit during the seminar a bit later on, but certainly the standard requires you to have plans and programs in place for data capture, data management, and how you use that data within the organization. So yeah, the standard would really help you with your aims there. Then we've got a tie for third place with compliance with legislation and corporate targets. So in terms of legislation, we cover that in the seminar as well a little bit later on, but 50001 can help you in two key ways. A key part of the standard is to identify legal requirements, ensuring you have a pathway to compliance within your management system and checking compliance against it. But also 50001 can be a pathway to compliance with key legislation.
Excellent. I think we may have lost James for a bit there, but why don't we move on? I think that was interesting to see everyone's responses, so thank you for that. And for those who have just joined, we are continuing on with our second poll question. So the second poll question is all about your approach to integrated management systems. So please choose one option. Either you already have an IMS and would like to add 50,001, or maybe you're planning to integrate your systems within the next 12 months, or maybe you don't plan to integrate your management systems, or also maybe you're not certified yet to any of those ISO standards, 9,000, which is quality, 14,000, which is environmental, or 45,001, which is occupational health and safety. So we'll keep it open just for a few moments more to make sure everyone responds who wants to, and then we'll take a look at the responses. Wonderful. It looks like the top answer is you already have an integrated management system, and this really helps James and I understand our audience and know how to what to cover in our webinar today and what to focus on. So it's great that most have an integrated management system and are looking to add 50,001, which is great. And then looks like a couple others here are looking to integrate their systems within the next 12 months or don't plan to integrate systems, which is also just fine. All right, well, thank you for participating in these polls. We will have a couple more polls at the end, right before the Q&A session. And now we will move to the main presentation for today. So we all know that we depend on energy, we use energy. In attempting to quantify the energy use we have, I went to the IEA's Global Energy Report that was recently published. And you can see here on this slide some of the key findings out of EIA's report. And basically what I read is it confirmed and justified what I know, that our energy needs are continually increasing. And we all know that the most ways we generate energy also produce greenhouse gas emissions. And the energy sector is responsible for almost 3/4 of the emissions that have been pushing the global temperature 1.1 degrees C higher than the pre-industrial age. So, and we see these impacts on weather and climate extremes around the world. So that leads us to understand that the energy sector has to be at the heart of the solutions to climate change. What does that mean? How do we get there? What do we do? There's 3 things that the IEA report suggested focusing on. Obviously, clean electrification, focusing on clean energy innovation, and the third thing is a focus on energy efficiency, which is also what we're going to be covering in this webinar today. So why energy efficiency? We all see these common issues: energy security, rising cost of energy, rising cost of living, and the climate crisis. And actually, energy efficiency can be a solution for all of these issues, at least part of the solution for all of these issues. Really reducing the amount of energy we use solves them. We also all have net zero goals. Either they may be becoming more regulatory or even voluntary net zero goals. How do you reach them? Reducing our energy use will make it that much easier to reduce, to reach those goals, to reach our net zero goals, obviously. So how do we reduce our energy use? Do we change all of our light bulbs to LED? What else can I do? What else is most effective to reduce our energy use and not go bankrupt? So really, we need a systematic way to analyze our energy and figure out solutions to reducing it. And now I'm going to hand it over to James to explain a tool that will do just that.
So Heather has given us an insight into why energy management is quickly becoming one of the most fundamental areas of focus across all business sectors. Reducing energy consumption and managing energy efficiency will not only reduce an organisation's cost, but will also reduce carbon footprint and help protect the natural environment. Using energy more efficiently also reduces an organisation's reliance on others to provide that energy they need to operate, and reducing the risk to your organisation. Energy management systems can help us achieve this. So, what is an energy management system? Well, an energy management system is a series of interlinked policies, objectives, processes, and performance review activities that combine to produce a systematic approach to continually improve an organisation's energy performance. Energy management systems follow the PDCA cycle of Plan, Do, Check, Act that we all will be familiar with from working with well-established quality, environmental and safety management system standards. Energy management systems can be adopted by any organisation that consumes energy, whatever the sector or purpose. They are equally applicable to office environments as they are to large manufacturing sites. They can address all forms of energy that are used, be that electricity, gas, fuel oils, or steam. In a similar way to safety management system looks to eliminate hazards and reduce risk, energy management systems are focused on eliminating sources of waste energy and using the energy required for the key processes in the most efficient way possible. Continual improvement can be measured through overall reductions in energy use, but can also be measured using performance indicators that are linked to output, hours worked, or turnover, whatever is relevant to that particular organisation, to give a measure of efficiency. The ISO 50001-2018 standard provides a framework for energy management systems that brings energy management and continual improvement into the core of an organisation and is an opportunity for organisations to align their energy management system with their strategic direction. ISO 50001-2018 is a standard that provides a framework for the development of energy management systems. It is a certifiable standard, so organisations can use it to demonstrate to key stakeholders an organisation's commitment to improving energy performance and minimising impact on the environment, and to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of the planned arrangements and continual improvement. The standard applies to energy used by an organisation in the delivery of its activities and services. It's not applicable to the energy efficiency of any goods or items designed, manufactured or sold by that organisation. The 2018 version of the standard follows the common terminology and structure of Annex SL, which we are familiar with. This allows an easy integration with your existing management system, such as ISO 9001 for quality or ISO 14001 for environmental management. As such, many of the clause requirements around context of the organisation, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation and improvement you will be familiar with and have in place within your existing quality or an environmental management system. To implement 50001 effectively, these need to be adapted to be given an energy focus. Similar to the latest revisions of ISO 9001 and ISO 14001, the 2018 version of the standard also requires strategic level insight into energy performance. Organisations need to factor in who and what, both internally and externally, can affect energy performance in a business context. However, despite the similarities, it should be noted there are some key differences in requirements and clauses that are specific to ISO 50001. For example, these include implementing an energy management system certified to 50001 includes the need to establish energy baselines for energy usage and energy performance indicators, as well as the usual objectives and targets which exist within an environmental management system. There are also specific clauses relating to design, covering facilities and production lines rather than goods and items the organisation manufactures, and procurement, including specifying energy purchasing requirements. Although organisations generally recognise that energy is a significant cost and an area where improvements can be made, it's often neglected during purchasing and design decisions, and opportunities for ongoing energy efficiency improvement and financial savings are often missed. ISO 50001 specifically highlights these areas, so your energy management system will ensure that these opportunities are investigated and improvement potential identified and realised. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some of the key terminology that we find in ISO 50001, some of which we've highlighted on the slide. Most of us will be familiar with the Annex SL based terminology used within ISO 50001 2018. However, there's some very specific terminology used within the standard, particularly in Clause 6 planning. Luckily, Section 3 of the standard provides us with definitions for these terms. Clause 6 of the standard requires organisations to conduct and document an energy planning process. This needs to be consistent with policy requirements and drive continual improvement in your energy performance. It also needs to involve a review of your activities that can affect your energy performance, similar to an environmental aspects assessment within an ISO 14001 management system. To achieve this, an organisation must undertake an energy review to review and analyse energy use and consumption based on measurements and other data. The energy review should provide information and data needed to establish the energy performance indicators, EMPIs, and determine the energy baseline. This then leads directly to the identification of the significant energy uses, or SEUs, and these are similar to the significant environmental aspects that we find within an environmental management system. These are then used to identify opportunities for energy performance improvement moving forwards. This planning process and the ISO 50001 standard as a whole is very data driven, and as such, data is critically important in the demonstration of improved energy performance. Therefore, planning which data to collect and how and when data will be collected is critical. Clause 6.6 of the standard details the minimum which should be monitored and requires that an energy data collection plan is defined and implemented. The level of measurement will vary for each organisation and could range from reading utility meters up to complete software applications, consolidating data inputs and delivering automatic analysis. The measurement level should be appropriate to the size and complexity of your organisation. There's no one-size-fits-all standard. You should also need to make sure that the data you use is accurate and repeatable. So you will need to calibrate or otherwise verify the monitoring equipment that is being used. The ISO 50001 management system can integrate with other management systems that you may have within your organisation. Annex SL is the high-level structure and common text for all ISO management system standards that have been launched or revised since 2015. It ensures consistency and compatibility between the different management system standards and allows for a straightforward and harmonised implementation of multiple standards. Therefore, when ISO 50001 was revised in 2018, it followed the common terminology and structure of Annex SL. This allows easy integration with your existing management systems, such as ISO 9001 for quality and ISO 14001 for environment. By using Annex SL, there becomes a much stronger focus on the context of the organisation and the role of top management, ensuring buy-in from top management and greater employee contribution. And as such, ISO 50001 expects energy performance to be integrated into the structure of the organisation. There's a very close link between ISO 50001 and ISO 14001, but the two are very separate standards. Although energy is included as an aspect in the majority of organisations' ISO 14001 management systems, no particular emphasis is given to energy, and it's often overlooked with organisations concentrating on more obvious environmental aspects, such as chemical and waste management. ISO 50001 has been designed solely for management of energy and includes a number of requirements not covered in ISO 14001. Implementing an energy management system certified to ISO 50001 includes the need to establish baseline energy usage with energy performance indicators, as well as the usual objectives and targets which exist within an environmental management system. There are also specific clauses relating to design and procurement, including specifying energy purchasing requirements. Certification to ISO 50001 brings many benefits to having the management system stand alone without certification. Certification to ISO 15001 enables organisations to demonstrate their commitments to their stakeholders for improving energy performance and minimising impact on the environment to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of the management system and continual improvement. Independent auditing and certification to a defined standard can provide assurance to board members, shareholders and senior leadership of an organisation that oversight and governance have been put in place for energy management and have been robustly implemented and are effective. It can also provide a level of assurance that key legal requirements are being met. It is a key requirement of ISO 50001 that an organisation identifies legal and other requirements focusing on energy, take these into consideration when establishing their management system, and at planned intervals evaluate compliance against them. Independent audit provides assurance that these processes are working effectively, and in certain circumstances, certification to ISO 50001 can also be a pathway to compliance. ISO 50001 is a risk-based standard. Certification by an independent certification body demonstrates to key stakeholders that the management system is effective at controlling these significant risks. And finally, in order for an organisation to achieve and subsequently maintain certification to ISO 50001, they must demonstrate continual improvement, not only in the management of their management system, but also in their overall energy performance. The continual scrutiny and challenge of certification audits ensure that organisations remain honest in their efforts to achieve continual improvement, and it drives innovation. ISO 50001 is very closely linked to ESOS compliance. ESOS, the Energy Savings and Opportunities Scheme, is the UK government's approach to implementing the requirements of Article 8 of the EU's Energy Efficiency Directive. Organisations and corporate members in the UK must comply with ESOS regulations if they meet one of the more of the following criteria. They have 250 employees or more, an annual turnover exceeding £44 million, or a balance sheet total in excess of £38 million. Organisations can use a number of different routes to achieve ESOS compliance, including ESOS energy audits undertaken by licensed energy assessors, or through ISO 50001 certification. ISO 50001 certification issued by a UCAS accredited certification body such as LRQA and covering the full scope of an organisation's energy consumption will suffice as ESOS compliance. All you need to do is notify the Environment Agency that this is your chosen route to compliance and provide proof of certification to ISO 50001 2018. The benefits of ISO 50001 compliance over an ESOS energy assessment includes a demonstration of continual improvement in energy performance and reduced energy costs. There is no requirement within ESOS to implement any of the energy saving opportunities identified within your energy assessment report. However, with 50001, to maintain certification, you must demonstrate that you're achieving your objectives and targets and implementing the improvement measures that you have identified. In addition, ISO 50001 is a tried and tested strategic framework and long-term plan for energy saving. It requires organisations to minimise risk and increase energy scrutiny, and it can build a competitive edge through improved performance, productivity, and effective communication. With ESOS energy assessments, all sites must be surveyed. However, with 50001, the approach we use can determine compliance using sampling. We may not have to visit each site. Therefore, for larger multi-site organisations, it may be a lower time burden and potentially a lower cost route to compliance with ESOS. A new ESOS compliance period starts every 4 years. If your system is certified to ISO 50001, your organisation will automatically demonstrate ESOS compliance, whilst maintenance and improvement of your 50001 certified system will also allow ongoing compliance with future ESOS phases. So as we mentioned in the previous slide, ESOS is driven out of the EU Energy Efficiency Directive. Since the UK has left the EU, there have been some changes to the way in which the EU Energy Efficiency Directive operates. Within the European Green Deal, the EU is increasing its climate ambition and aims at becoming the first climate neutral continent by 2050. The Commission has therefore revised the Energy Efficiency Directive together with other EU energy climate rules to ensure that the new 2030 target of reducing greenhouse gases by at least 55% compared to 1990 can be met. Article 8 of EED still requires Member States to implement mandatory energy audits for large enterprises. Again, similar qualification criteria apply. They are organisations with in excess of 250 employees, an annual turnover of at least 50 million euros, or an annual balance sheet of 43 million euros. Each member state sets its own limit for when audits become mandatory, audit and reporting format, and auditors' skills and qualifications. ISO 50001 is referenced within the Article 8 of EED. However, as the directive is enacted by specific requirements and regulations in each member state, you will have to check the regulations in each member state in which you operate as to whether ISO 50001 certification can be used as a potential route to compliance.
James has just taken us through regulatory requirements in the UK and the EU. And so here's just some additional focus on energy efficiency in the US. We recently passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which includes $369 billion of money towards energy security and climate change programs in the next 10 years. And a lot of it is geared toward allowing tax deductions and other financial incentives for energy efficiency measures, renewable energy sources, alternative fuels, all this kind of thing. So this is just a another indicator to me that the world is focusing on energy and reducing energy, and using something like an ISO 50001 system would allow you to really take advantage of any of these tax deductions and things like that in the Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay, so thank you, Heather, for that catch up there on the US legislation. So we've been through a quick overview of what ISO 50001 is all about and how it can help your organisation. So what are the next steps? The first thing you should consider doing is visiting the LRQA website. This will give you access to a range of resources on ISO 50001, including downloadable materials such as an overview and implementation guides. Whether you're just starting out in energy management systems or an experienced practitioner looking for a qualification, our ISO 50001 training courses are designed to match your personal development goals. The energy management courses offered by LRQA can support the implementation of your energy management system in line with the standard requirements, helping your organisation reduce both energy use and its costs at the same time. Our most popular courses are Introduction to ISO 50001, our ISO 50001 Lead Auditor courses, our Energy Management Principles courses, and also our own internal auditor courses. We also can provide help through the assessment process. We have our assessor-delivered gap analysis, which offers an opportunity to focus on critical, high-risk or weak areas of your system in order to create a certifiable system during the development stages. It can also look at how existing management systems or procedures can be used within your chosen standard to combine with ISO 50001. Whether you're in the early stages of implementing your management system or looking for a dry run before the assessment visit, the scope of the gap analysis can be tailored to meet your needs. Or you can contact us about certification to the standard. Certification is typically a two-stage process and a transition a single-stage process consisting of a system appraisal and initial assessment, the duration of which is dependent upon the size and nature of your organisation. Your business development manager will design a solution to meet your specific needs, while our assessors will be open, helpful, and take a practical approach. This is one of the many ways we add value through the assessment process.
Thanks, James. Before we start the questions, and I know several of you have submitted some great questions, so I'm excited to answer them. But before we get started on that, we'd like to ask you two more poll questions. So the first one is, will your organization be looking for any of the following services in the next 12 months? Gap analysis, training, or certification? We'll give you a few minutes to answer, and then we'll move on to the next poll question. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next one. All right, and so our final poll question for today, will your organization be looking for any other sustainability services in the next 12 months? So there's ISO 1464 greenhouse gas emissions verification, or 1467 product carbon footprint verification. And then we also do kind of a more general data and information verification, which can include data like your water use, energy use, waste generation, safety data, any other data that you're reporting falls under that. There's also the corporate report verification, which includes assurance on your full sustainability report that you're publishing. So it's more of a qualitative assurance process. And then last but not least, there's also supply chain assurance. So just take a few moments and select all that apply, and then we'll open it up to questions. Wonderful, thank you for your responses. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in your attendee control panel. And James, I believe you have the first question.
Thank you, Heather. Yes, I do. There's been a few questions come in about the integration of ISO 50001 with its existing management system standards. And the first one came in from Alan Overton, who said, "Can I integrate 50001 into my ISO 9001 QMS?" So hopefully, Alan, the answer for that's been given in the seminar. As both standards are written around the Annex SL criteria, then they're primed to be integrated. Within that integration process, there'll be certain procedures and processes that can be directly applied to both standards. But also, as you work through, there'll be specific items and specific requirements of 50001 which will require their own processes and procedures to deliver. So yes, you most definitely can integrate it with your 9001 QMS, but you may have to do some specialist procedures in there for ISO 50001. I hope that answers that question.
Great, thanks, James. And then we have a question from Duncan about how can you set energy targets if you have a solar power system and no way of predicting energy generation? I would just say setting energy targets is really more focused on how much energy you're consuming, not generating. And so, you want to reduce the amount of energy you consume, and looking at all of your sources of energy within your organization. The solar would enable you to use renewable power instead of the grid power to fulfill that energy load, but really energy targets are focusing on consumption. Anything else to add on that one, James?
No, I think that's exactly it. And is that if you're using solar power on your site, 50001 is focused on energy efficiency, so you need to make sure you've got the right metering strategy and philosophy in place, including sub-meters, so you can then demonstrate where your power is coming from and that you're using that efficiently.
Wonderful.
Okay, good. So I've got a question come in from excuse my pronunciation, Miyawa. I manage ISO 50001 at my workplace. What training can I do to qualify as an internal auditor? So within management systems, there's no set competency criteria defined for internal audit. Instead, it's up to the individual workplaces themselves to define what criteria they believe their internal auditors should meet and maintain records to show that their auditors meet that criteria. But if you're looking for a bit more support and guidance, then there's a number of courses offered by LRQA regarding ISO 15001. Some of those are internal auditor courses. Some of those are lead auditor courses, but also if you've got those auditor skills already, then it might be a better place to start around our introduction to 50001 training courses or our energy management principles, because then you can take your skills you've learned from your other internal auditor courses and transfer those into energy management.
Thanks, James. And I think here's another one for you, James. James is the expert on 2001. Someone is asking about the main differences between the old version and the new version of the standard published in 2018.
Okay, so by now, anyone that has ISO 50001 should have transitioned to the 2018 version of the standard. There's a sunset date for the old version of the standard. All the certificates and that's now passed, so they've all lapsed if you still have one of those, unfortunately. So while we can talk about the differences, the key focus is really making sure everyone's using the 2018 version of the standard. The key differences really are making sure that ISO 50001 was aligned to Annex SL, that the standard and criteria for all management systems going forwards. That way it enables that integration. But the key focus there was really in the upfront planning sections in terms of identifying the context of the organization and its energy framework it operates in, and making sure that's taken into account when developing the management system, looking at the key risks and opportunities associated with energy use, and again making sure they're addressed within the management system. And again, like all Annex SL systems, making sure there's the strategic direction from leadership, setting commitments, setting policies, and taking responsibility for the management systems and driving for improvement, and not just relying on the management system representatives to perform that role.
Perfect, thank you, James. And here's another question about, I'll just read it and I think it will be clear. When determining the management system processes, can one use the same processes as in a quality management system? For example, sales, purchasing, design and development, production, storage, and transport.
Okay, so in terms of energy management, then your key task really is to identify what are your significant energy uses. And so while you can use the similar process to use in quality, to identify where those energy sources are being used. So in sales, you can look at where your key sources of energy use fit. In purchasing, where they are design, development, production. You can break it down into that as part of that energy review. But the key focus is what are our key energy uses, where are we using that energy, and where are the areas we can target for efficiency.
Perfect. Thanks, James. And then another question that we've received is if an organization is growing and cannot demonstrate a reduction, what other mechanisms are available to show continual improvement? I would say, especially in the verification work that we do, not just energy, but with greenhouse gas emissions as well, companies are continually starting to use metrics. And so it would be energy per revenue dollar or energy per unit produced. Whatever metric makes sense, you want to make sure that your business, even if you're growing, which is great, you're becoming more efficient as you grow.
Yeah, that's definitely right, Heather. The standard is about energy efficiency, not energy reduction. It's hoped that through efficiency you will drive an overall reduction eventually, but it's about efficiency, and it's about normalizing your energy use data to a level of production, which then, if your production increases, hopefully your energy use per unit of production will become more efficient.
Yeah, excellent. And another comment, I think, and also a question from Emma, which I think is a great comment. This was about the webinar, is talking about cutting energy use. And are there any practical ideas that, James, you have seen when you're auditing 50001 systems that companies have come up with? Perhaps I'm putting you a bit on the spot, but.
Okay. So I guess the solutions and ideas that you come up with to drive reductions in your energy are really very company specific. So ISO 50001 will help you identify those through the energy review and through the identification of objectives and targets. So it's a standard that's applied to all industries, and how much benefit you get from it is that focus. It's very difficult to say what are the key and best ideas for energy reduction at the moment. But there's lots of things going on. What I would say is lots of people have already done the practical elements, the things like variable speed drives, the things like LED lighting within their workplace, things that looking at different sources of energy. What ISO 50001 does is it drives innovation. Is once you've exhausted those things and you're starting to not see efficiency from improvements from implementing those elements, it then starts you to start looking at your process. So if you're manufacturing things, well, what are the cure times on resin? How can we switch to quicker cure times or lower temperature cure times for using less energy in our process? How can we make sure we're driving kind of our product design to make sure we're using least energy in that process? Okay.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think once you look at your system, there's tons of different ways to reduce the energy based on, but it's really different based on your industry type, right? I mean, I'm sure you see all kinds of different solutions for manufacturing versus office spaces versus oil and gas versus hospitality. I think there would be many different options there. All right, so here is another question. Are the internal and external issues related to energy management system, are they related to the energy management system or to the whole organization within 50001? Yeah.
So again, that comes back to determining the context of the organisation and the internal and external issues. So when you're framing that, 50001 is an energy management system. So we're looking at the internal and external issues that are related to energy management within your whole organisation or within the organisation that's been the scope of that management system. Perfect.
There is another question about, it says 50001 looks like a data collection system. I know also from my verification work, there are many different tools that I've seen clients use. And as LRQA, we really don't recommend using one or the other. There's many tools out there that will help you collect your data, manage your data. But I would say the best organizations that I've seen, first, you got to make sure that your data is correct in the first place. And any tool you use, whether if it's a fancy, web-based tool or an Excel file that you're using, the quality of it and the fanciness of the data tool doesn't really matter if your data behind that is not set up correctly. So I would say ISO 50001 really gives you a good framework and a governance for your company as a whole to make sure that the data being input into any tools that you use will be quality and accurate. Anything else to add on that one, James?
No, I think it's a great answer.
Okay. And here's a quick one, maybe. By when does the organization need to be certified to ISO 50001 to meet the ESOS assessment? Or do you know the right? I know it's different for each member state, so that may be actually more of a complicated question.
Okay, so if we're talking ESOS, then that specifically relates to the UK, because that's the UK's regulations that implement the Energy Efficiency Directive. Okay, and the next reference data period is December 23. So you need to make sure you've got your management system in place by then, so you can then submit that as evidence to the Environment Agency.
Perfect. Let's see. What else? There's any other website or guidance documents that we suggest to read for further detail? I would say look at our next steps on the slide that we have and start from there. Any other thoughts on that one, James?
Definitely. If you start on LRQA website, then there's a whole host of implementation guides and overviews of ISO 50001. So that's a really good place to start. And then if you have any questions, then you can contact the LRQA office. Obviously, we can't help you with implementation because we're a certification body. We can't provide consultancy. But if you do provide further support beyond there, we have a network of consultants that we can provide access to that you can choose one to come in and help you out.
Perfect. So here's a good question. Does 50001 consider only reduction of energy use as an improvement, or does it also consider the reduction of environmental aspects and impacts on energy use, like CO2 emissions? Okay, as a continual improvement, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's an energy management standard. So while it's linked to environment and 14001 aspects such as CO2 indirectly, it is all about reducing or becoming more efficiently using your energy. So yeah, it is just about efficient use of kilowatts or thermal units, however you want to describe your energy.
Yeah, excellent. And actually, another point on that, we are conducting a survey with other certification bodies as well. So it's more of a global survey on sustainability data and ESG, environmental social governance, and what organizations see as the critical aspects. And looking at energy management, water management, waste, sustainability reporting, all these things, organizations from the US, the UK, even China, and Europe all put energy management as the top kind of most critical aspect that they were looking at first, right? And then sustainability reporting, emissions all came really closely below. But I thought it was interesting that energy management is obviously the start of all of the rest of it.
Okay, I think there's one final question, isn't there? Do you have any advice for setting up energy baseline for an organization? That's come from Exxon. So in terms of that, then really it's to follow through the processes of the defined within the standard of conducting that energy review. So from there, you identify your key sources of energy, you identify where that energy is being used, and you develop your energy performance indicators to determine how that energy has been used, and you use that then to set your baseline. From there, once you've set that baseline, any improvements that you make in efficiency can be measured from that baseline.
Excellent. Do we have time for some? I know there are just a little, maybe one or two more questions we have, and I think we have a few more minutes to answer more. So if you want to submit any others, feel free to. I think this one is related to the one you just answered, James. But if you have anything else to add, feel free. The question is, what is the practical way to establish an ENB, energy management system?
Yeah, so again, ENB, your energy baseline, that's the key task. It's following those steps of the energy review and making sure you've considered what are your significant energy uses.
Excellent. So another one, what is the additional benefit to adding 50,001 when I already have 14,001 and I'm tracking energy consumption via KPIs?
Okay, so I say 50,001 is directly focused on energy management. So if you're looking at ISO 14,001, then whilst energy is important, it may not get as direct attention as it will do if you have 50,001. And 50,001 will make sure that, well, in 14,001, eventually energy management, as you're managing it, its significance and importance will reduce, and potentially it may drop off your radar for objectives, targets, and programs because you've done what you feel you can. With ISO 50,001, then it'll keep driving you to drive improvements in efficiency and become more innovative in the way you achieve that. So hopefully bringing significant benefit to the organization.
I would say as a 14,001 auditor as well, I think it's interesting that the definitions that 50,001 has specifically related to energy help an organization define, all have the same definitions of the terms that you're talking about. So when you're talking to one plant versus another plant versus, globally, you all are using the same terms, which is a common issue that we see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question in from Exxon regarding what are the main challenges in implementing this system in any sector, but especially in manufacturing. So the challenges that the 50,001 implementation kind of generate are similar to most management systems in that one of getting management and senior management buy-in and getting drive to put that in. The other one is making sure you've got the right resource to be able to implement the system, and then time and continuing motivation to keep it going. So they're kind of key challenges that are faced with all management systems. Specific to 50,001, then it's data driven. So data capture and data management tend to be the most significant challenges. So as part of establishing your energy baseline, how you develop your monitoring programs to identify where you need to meter, and older sites, for example, may have very few energy meters within their format, within their operating structure, whereas to get the most benefit out of 50,001, they may want to look to start breaking down into sub-meters, specific energy uses for specific process or specific pieces of kit. So then you can then target those for objectives and targets for improvement in performance.
Perfect. Thanks, James. So let's see. We have some other questions here that are just coming in. I don't know. This may be putting you a bit on the spot, James. So let me know. But do you have any tips on how to keep energy consumption of heating low, while still meeting the needs of other health and safety needs and things like that?
Okay, yeah, and it says there specifically COVID, doesn't it? And
Yes.
CO2 levels. Yeah. Okay, so again, Kian, it's really difficult for me to answer that question because that'll depend on the structure and nature of the heating system within your building. It will depend on the ventilation systems that you have and how they interact. But you know, if it's a modern building, that should have been designed with those kind of parameters being considered. So there's a good balance. Older buildings, it's more difficult, and you may need to put into kind of retrofitting systems. Okay, but yeah, there's no kind of one size fits all answer there, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And I see some questions about the cost of implementation of ISO 50001. I would say it's very much dependent on the scope of your organization and the scope of your management system.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's not an easy answer for that one.
No. I think Nicholas has spoken about gap analysis as well, and yeah, based on the rate of the country you're in and the number of days that are required to do that to get the most out of it. But what I will say is when we're doing, and I'm sure Heather will back me on this, but when we are delivering management system certification, then organisations that undertake gap analysis before they start the formal certification process tend to have a much smoother ride through the certification process than those that jump straight to stage one and stage two. Okay.
Definitely. Let's see. I like Alistair mentioned, would a tighter focus on 50001 potentially be a good stepping stone into the broader environmental aspects of 14001 for some organizations? And I would say a resounding yes. I think that's definitely it. Yes. I think 50001 makes you look at energy, and if you're looking at energy, you're reducing your environmental footprint.
Okay, there's a question coming here about, are there any research into global or national added benefit realized from educating workforce about energy efficiency? Okay, so I'm not sure I can point to any specific research, but from my experience and what I've seen with the organisations I've worked with, it is where organisations have implemented employee awareness campaigns to educate their workforce around energy efficiency, then they do see improvements in the energy efficiency performance of their organisation. As with any awareness campaign, what you'll see is as you start the campaign, it will peak upwards, your energy efficiency drive, but then the levels of awareness will start to tail off slowly over time. And when you get to that certain critical level, that's when you have to repeat your awareness and start that whole program again, often repeating what you've said before to really drive that culture and behavior into people. So much like you do with behavioral safety, then behavioral energy can have behavioral energy management can have a real impact on businesses.
Excellent. Well, we have, I think, time perhaps for one or two more questions. This one question is interesting. With home working, how is that incorporated into an energy management system?
That's a tricky one, Heather. That's a very difficult question. Thank you, Robin.
I would say for verification. So when we're looking at a corporation's greenhouse gas footprint, home working is usually what we call a scope 3. So there's scope 1 emissions, which are your direct emissions on site. So that would be directly affected by your ISO 50001 system. And in any offsite work or home working is a scope 3 emission. So that may be, I don't know how EMS would handle that.
Yeah, I guess it'll be down to your scope of your management system, and if you choose to include it, Robin, if you did choose to include it, then then you would have some challenges on gathering data on energy use within those locations. But that's not to say you can make assumptions about what, especially if you're providing equipment in terms of laptops and printers, etc., to your employees to use at home. Then you can make assumptions about that energy use, and then when you're making procurement decisions for that equipment, demonstrate through your procurement processes you're meeting objectives and targets to purchase more efficient energy using equipment for use in those home office locations.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate everyone attending, and I hope you were able to get some good information from this webinar. As always, feel free to contact us, go to our next steps, and we'd love to talk to you more about 50001 or verification of any type.
Thank you, Heather and James. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar and for all your brilliant questions. Once you leave the webinar today, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd appreciate that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within the next 24 to 48 hours with the recording of today's webinar. On behalf of LRQA and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and enjoy your day.